Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 o'clock on August 14, 2024 in the Council Chambers at the Municipal Administration Center. We begin with roll call. Deputy Mayor Clark,
Present.
Councillor Blackwell,
Present.
Councillor Kavanaugh,
Present.
Councillor Hinchberger,
Present.
Councillor Kennedy, Councillor Prenger, Councillor Steinoff Gray, Councillor Stewart.
Present.
And I'd like to acknowledge the staff that's here. And do we have anyone online tonight? Not yet. No one yet. Okay. And our staff members as well. Deputy Mayor Clark, please.
We'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are meeting on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewas of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewas of Saugeen First Nation, whose ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land. We recognize and deeply appreciate the contributions that Indigenous peoples have made both in caring for this land and shaping and strengthening this community, our province, and our country. As a public service organization, we are dedicated to learning and acknowledging Indigenous history and culture, and are committed to actions that move us towards a journey of truth, healing, and reconciliation with the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Métis Nation of Ontario, and the historic Saugeen Métis.
Do any council members have any amendments, additions, or deletions to or from the agenda? I remind you to disclose any pecuniary interest as it arises in the meeting or now, if you know it, the general nature. So we need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the council meetings held July 24 be adopted and as printed, moved by councillors Hinchberger and Stewart. All in favor? That's carried. And we need a mover and seconder that council move into the Committee of Adjustment meeting and upon completion, return to council, moved by councillors Stewart and Kavanaugh. All in favor? And that's carried. All right, so I'd like to call to order the Committee of Adjustment meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5:02 on August 14, 2024. Once again, remind you of your requirement to declare any pecuniary interest. And we need a mover and seconder that the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting of February 14, 2023 or 2024? 2024 be adopted as printed, moved by councillors Hinchberger and Blackwell. All in favor? Yes. And that's carried. So we're going to be hearing a minor variance files. This is a hearing under the Planning Act. So if anyone from the public is interested in this application or wishes to receive a notice of the decision, there is a website at the Bruce County Planning Department where you can get information on that. First, we're going to receive a report from planning staff, and then the committee members will have an opportunity to ask questions, and I'll ask them to reserve their comments on the application itself until we've heard from the public. So that means we can ask the technical questions, but we don't get into rendering our decision. Then we'll hear from the public who are here in person, online, or who have submitted correspondence to the email address. Members of the public are advised that the right to appeal the decision on this application is limited to specified persons and public bodies as defined in the Planning Act, or the owner or the applicant of the land subject to the amendment who have provided oral or written comments to the committee on the application before the decision is made. After we've heard from the public, the committee will discuss and consider a recommendation on this application. So I now declare the hearing open and would ask Planner Jake Bousfield-Battisto to present the application. Jake, please. Yeah, there was some more wording there introducing that. There's a recommendation through the county that all the municipalities read the same introduction, which gives the public some information regarding the process for rendering comment or appeals or anything, so get used to it. We're gonna have to say that a bit more often. Jake, good evening.
Good evening. Okay, so the proposal before you tonight is to construct a detached 9 by 15 meter garage structure at 478 Concession 6. The structure is being proposed in the front yard, thus requiring the minor variance, as the zoning bylaw specifies that accessory structures are built sited outside of the front yard, rear or side yards. Staff considered the 4 tests of the minor variance as per the Planning Act and suggests that the application meets those 4 tests. I'll note the main consideration there being that a primary intent of zoning bylaws maintaining accessory structures behind the primary structure is to manage streetscape impacts. In a rural setting such as along Concession 6, these impacts are not anticipated, as such outbuilding placement is not uncommon and is still greatly exceeding the minimum front yard setback from the road. Given the above, the application is considered minor, and staff recommend that it be approved.
Thank you, Jake. Are there any questions for the planner from members of the committee? Okay, now we will hear from members of the public. Is the applicant or the agent present this evening? And if they are here, would you like to make a presentation of any sort? Don't have to, just. Hi, glad you're here. Good. Is there anyone else from the public here to speak in support of the application? Is there anyone here from the public with questions, concerns, or objections to the application? All right, and were there any written submissions that were presented? Okay, thank you, Jake. All right, do any committee members have any final questions before we close the hearing and discuss the application? Any? Okay, I now declare the hearing to be closed, and we will consider a recommendation on the application. So I would need a mover and seconder that the Committee of Adjustment approve the minor variance A 2024-016 from Tom and Shannon Woodward for the property described as 478 Concession 6 to permit an accessory structure to be sited in the front yard. Moved by Councillors Blackwell and Deputy Mayor Clark. Is there any discussion regarding this application? All in favor? And that is carried. So you're welcome to stay longer if you want, but you can go home and have supper too if you want. I start building, yeah. Well, hand a hammer out to everyone and we'll have her done in no time. All right, next on the agenda is a hearing for a minor variance, file number A 2024-025. And once again, there's a hearing under the Planning Act, and there's the same guidelines as before. So I now declare the hearing open and ask planner Julie Steeper to present the application, please.
Good evening, committee. This application seeks relief from the parking requirements. The proposed parking is 4.86 per classroom, whereas the required parking ratio in the zoning bylaw is 8 spaces per classroom. If approved, the application would facilitate the placement of 3 new portables at 885 and 896 River Lane. The property is located west of Highway 21, south of Broadway Street and east of Princess Street. The subject site is occupied by the Kincardine District Senior School and is surrounded by natural features and residential uses. A site visit was conducted as part of this application, and these portables have already been placed on site. The planning analysis centers around the 4 tests of the minor variance. Relief can only be granted if it passes the 4 tests. These proposed portables are part of an institutional use and permitted within the designations of the local and county official plan. There are currently 19 classrooms and 107 parking spaces. No additional parking spaces are proposed. The proposed parking ratio is aligned with with other parking regulations in other municipalities such as Meaford, Owen Sound, Stratford, and Goderich. Through the concurrence comprehensive zoning update, staff are also considering reducing the parking standards for institutional uses as well. So that would align with that. The new portables are intended to be a temporary accommodation until the new school can be provided. So these may not be long-term. And the applicant is also here at the meeting virtually, I believe. And there have been no concerns from agencies and no public comments received on this application. And this concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steeper, for that report. Are there any questions for the planner from the committee members? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I'll try to keep this right on line. Thank you very much, Julie. These questions are for you. We have 3 portables on site without a permit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what does the county think of that?
Well, the county facilitates the Planning Act application. All applicants should make an application prior to doing any development. But that doesn't necessarily mean we enforce the bylaw dynamics. So enforcement of bylaw, I would need to Dwayne to speak in on that. That wouldn't necessarily be a question I would be able to answer.
Another follow-up question, if you don't mind. You were saying there's 107 spaces existing. Our existing bylaw says 8 spaces per classroom. You're a little light on the spaces, and now you're considering more spaces when you're not even close to the spaces that we was supposed to have already. We're supposed to have almost 160 spaces. I think you said 107. Then you get this number of 4.86. Can you tell me how that number sort of came? Because it doesn't seem to make sense to me where you're violating already, or there's a violation in having the spaces. Now, you did talk about some of the others' jurisdiction, but we haven't approved that. So we're still on the 8 spaces per classroom. Is that correct?
So just one moment. Yes, that is correct that the applicant is considering a reduction to the ratio. In regards to the number of parking spaces, just one moment here. I would just like to answer your question in regards to the number of parking spaces. So I'm just looking at my calculation. So just one moment, please. I would say that all these calculations and the number of parking spots were provided by the applicant, so provided by the school. So just one moment, though, I do want to provide my calculations. Just may take a few more minutes here.
Julie, it's Bill Stewart here again. Would you say that we're probably, the applicant said there's only 107, I think it's a fairly easy combination to say we're lacking parking there right from the get-go.
The applicant is seeking a reduction, yes, in the required number of parking spaces. That is correct.
Just to go back a little bit, when the high school was initially built, somewhere along the line, there would have been an approval process for the number of spaces there. There would have been some sort of process that said, yes, the spaces you hear are sufficient. So even though it is less than the bylaw proposes. Like I don't have that paper in front of me, but I can only expect that some council or planning department said, you know, this is the right number. So the, you know, the numbers that were in place, I'm not sure that we should or have the ability to go back and say that's the wrong number, but it might be the places moving forward, the reduction in spaces moving forward that would be applicable for conversation. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I agree. We might have to let that part go, but the new 3 portables will need 8 spaces each. And we know there's a lack of parking in the back. So I would say instead of this 4.86, I think they need 24 parking spots if we wanted to approve the permit. And, you know, we do have a cost, I think it's the cost of parking in lieu is $3,600 per parking spot. So I'm almost ready to propose to the council, if they want a permit, which they are absolutely requiring because the portables are there, and I believe the school's starting in what, 3 weeks, that we should actually charge them 24 times 36 per parking spots. You know, we're just not going to let the school dictate what we really need. So, you know, I don't know if that's legitimate, but I think we could probably, asking Dwayne, could we actually do that as a condition of their permit?
If, just before
then-
Dwayne speaks, if I could speak on the math there, Chair.
And actually, Julie, I'm going to remind council that, you know, the questions that we have are directed at the planner. So I'm going to afford the public conversation, and if Julie needs a moment just to scan her report or something, she can do that. And then when we get back to the final questions, then we can discuss some of the options, what council may or may not do through our planning and building department. All right, so we've heard the presentation from the applicant. Is there a school board rep or an agent of the school board rep here that would like to speak in addition to what we just heard from the planner? Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak on behalf of the application? Anyone here that would like to speak in opposition to the application? Okay. And at that point, then we come to okay. All right, we have a representative from the school board that would like to make a comment. So Marie Shelley, if you are able, just we are listening to your comments. Ms. Shelley, please.
Hello. Thank you. I hope that you can hear me. I'm virtually calling in from SRM Architects, representing the Blue Water District School Board for this minor variance application. I appreciate Julie's introduction to this project and the work that we've been doing to help facilitate accommodating additional students for this school. As has been outlined by Julie on this file, we're looking to seek relief on the parking requirements, as has been discussed. And to go back to some of the questions regarding the ratio, I think it was adequately pointed out that the existing ratio, yes, has been under the 8 parking stalls per classroom. And as was pointed out, that ratio we are kind of taking at face value that has been through a certain process and has been acceptable to this point in time. Unfortunately, we are, new consultants representing the board on this file, so we are taking that as it stands right now. Moving forward, looking at the 3 new portables, as was outlined in our application to the county and the municipality, these are temporary structures for students that the school board is actively looking at building an additional facility for the community. And so we're seeking that relief in order to, bridge the gap here, and that they might not be required down the line, in which case they are, movable structures that would be taken away, and that the school would return to as it functions now. So with that, we're looking at this relief as something to help bridge our gap with this application. So we hope that you can take that into consideration, as well as the kind of urban location of the school. The school board did its own kind of evaluation, looking at the percentage of students that they have being dropped off or bused to the facility or walking distance as well. Thank you. Let me know if there are any other questions, and I'll be on the line.
Yes, we have a question from our deputy mayor. Andrea, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm just wondering if you can, it's actually piggybacking on Councillor Stewart's earlier comment, but I wonder if you can provide some assistance. Section 45(1) of the Planning Act is very specific about having to meet the 4-point test for the variance to be granted. There seems, and I just wonder perhaps if you can clarify, whilst I've read the report, how you envision it meets point 3 in relation to the parking spaces in terms of intent.
I'm sorry, is that directed to
Either
Michelle
one,
or
it's whoever can answer that question. I'm really looking to understand how it meets the variance, because the Planning Act is very specific about the requirements.
Okay, perhaps we can ask Ms. Steeper to address that. She was the one who offered us the justification, so we'll look to her answer on that one. Julie, please.
Yeah, so the intent of the zoning bylaw, which is part of the 4 tests, which is part of the evaluation when we look at these things. The intended uses is an important part of that. These portables are facilitating the use that's currently is currently active on site. And it's felt, in my opinion, that these standards are aligned with parking ratios in other municipalities and would still fulfill the use. So it would be adequate, and that would maintain the purpose and intent of the zoning bylaw.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. Julie, I'm a little bit confused, and thank you through you, Chair. Reasons number 2, the variance maintains the intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw. It doesn't. It's black and white, it doesn't. So that's number 2. So it doesn't meet all 4 of them. It only meets 3 out of the 4. So you're saying that other jurisdictions, but we work only in Kincardine. And another thing, just a question, because they did open the door, both of them. You were saying this is temporary. What does temporary mean to the school board, or do you have any indication? I noticed on the piece of paper that there were 3 portables proposed, but right beside it, there was 3 more future ones. So I'm a little bit confused here. Is temporary only 3 and we don't need them next year? Or do you have any explanation for that at all to the public?
If I may, through you, Chair.
Yep, please go ahead.
So the reason we're here this evening is because it doesn't meet the zoning bylaw. And so evaluating doesn't necessarily mean the number in itself, it's whether the use and the proposal meets the intent of the zoning bylaw. We're here because it doesn't. And so that is evaluating whether this change is minor in nature. And my evaluation is based on whether that's minor. And so when I'm looking at the parking, I'm not necessarily looking at the number. I'm looking at the intent and the use of that proposal. And so regarding that, the use is an institutional use. And the issue we're looking at here is a reduction in the parking to facilitate that use. So that's kind of where that aligns. I understand it doesn't meet the zoning bylaw, but that section in my report is relating to the fact of not necessarily from an exact number or ratio perspective, but would this be realistically adequate to look at an accommodation for a school? And that's kind of how this was evaluated. Thank you.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. Through you, I have two questions. The first is kind of, well, I guess maybe just a comment. The fourth test is that the variance is minor in nature. And I think one of the conversations that's happened around the parking is the 107 that exist was decided upon earlier. So if I'm taking it at face value, we're going from a recommendation of 24 parking spots to 0 parking spots, correct? Like no new parking. So it's a pretty significant change, I would suggest, if we're looking at it in isolation. In overall usage, I don't really actually have a problem with it because the majority of students do tend to be bused or walked, and I would certainly encourage that versus more driving. My other question.
Point of order, and I'm sorry to make a point of order. Do you know that as proof or factual proof, or is that just what you think? Address the chair, sorry. Is that a fact? Has that been proven by the planner? Or is that basically just a point of view? Thank you.
Okay. So the question is regarding the statement whether or not most are bused or walk versus driving is, and I am challenged. But I think that I'm going to allow the question this time because I believe that we all have a sense, and I acknowledge that there's maybe not been a consultant study that has determined who walks and who drives. But I would allow the question this time based on our perception of and our counselors' local knowledge of the high school too. So.
Thank you. Through you, I guess that was just an observation from my own experience, but that's not really related to my question. My question was actually a follow-up on the temporary nature. When we do a amendment like this, is it a permanent amendment, or can it be something that is reviewed given perhaps the impact on the neighboring community in terms of additional parking that may be needed based on increased usage?
Certainly, any minor variance that we give is going to be in effect while the buildings are there. So whatever that time period is, and then the if the buildings are removed, then the minor variance moves with it. They go away. Yeah, specific to this application, because each application is a one-of. It doesn't carry over to anything else. So once again, the application is not about the length of the temporary, the stay. It is about the question, does the reduction in parking that they are requesting, is that a minor variance in the zoning bylaw, or is it something more significant than that? The planner's report suggests that it is minor in nature. So at this point, I'm going to declare that the hearing is closed. We're going to address the motion, and then committee will have opportunity to ask our CBO if there are continuing issues that we need clarity on, okay? So we need a mover and seconder that the Committee of Adjustment approve the minor variance A 2024-025 from the Blue Water District School Board for the property described as 885 and 896 River Lane Street to decrease the required number of parking spaces. Moved by Councillors Kavanaugh and Hinchberger. Questions? Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your Mayor. I think probably as I look at all the four tests in here, my decision is going to be based on, to some degree, whether there's an existing parking issue at the school, whether the addition of these 3 portables and the resultant students is going to make that materially worse. And this one's a little bit more subjective. I'm going to ask myself, would my decision be different if there was actually a new senior school in construction at this very moment that was going to be occupied next year? And would that or would that not change my decision? And I think that regardless of whether a new school would be built, it shouldn't affect my decision. Thanks.
Counselor Stewart, you had another question?
Thank you. And through you, Chair, one of the questions is actually at the CBO, if you don't mind. This is a problem with me. This is a problem I have, having 3 portables set up without a permit. This is sort of taking away from our responsibility and actually going through the due diligence that they're supposed to do as a school board. You'd expect them to do it. Dwayne, what is the actual, could we fine them for having these 3 portables without the variance and setting them up already? Is that a thing that we fine people, or we put a stop order on them? What is our repercussion of doing this without our permission? And then I have a second question.
If I may, I appreciate, I understand where you're going, but I'm not sure if it's a fine or if it is an agreement where there is payment in lieu of parking spaces. So you can, like, I don't think it's I think it's the same question that you're heading for, but I don't think there's a punitive. First off, is there a punitive measure? And then we'll let Councillor Stewart ask the second question. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, thank you, through your mayor. Yes, there is a process under the Building Code Act that an order could be issued, and then ultimately, once the orders are confirmed, then it would move to the next judicial level, where it would be fines for the provincial offenses. There's no set fine through any bylaws that Kincardine has, but there's a process through administering a Part 1 charge through the Building Code Act.
Councillor Stewart, second question.
Thank you. As a council, we have to approve or disapprove this, and you probably know which way I'm going. But I'm also concerned about the parking, and I'm really concerned about temporary. I don't know what temporary means. Temporary means a lot of different things to a lot of people. I don't think it's well defined. These portables could be here for another 5 years, plus additional ones. So what I'm sort of saying is that this thing is going to come up, because I believe that if we allow this, it only does for this one. So I would say that I'm not sure if we can, and Dwayne, you might have to help us here. I would say that if they want this thing approved, I would go for the 24 parking spots, because we're really lacking parking spots. And I would charge them $3,600, which is our standard fee, in lieu of parking for each spot. Thank you.
Question or statement?
I'd like it to be a question, but that's my statement. Sorry. It would be for Dwayne.
Thank you, through you, the mayor. Again, with the fee that we have in our structure from our fees bylaw, there is a standard fee for the portable itself. The section 620 of the zoning bylaw does afford council, if appropriate, to assign an agreement for a payment in lieu of parking. I'd have to have that, I think Julie made as a motion if council was to approve the variance as part of that motion. Just clarify that for me, Julie.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, Julie, did you hear that question?
I did not. Sorry, can you repeat it? Dwayne, I think I can't hear your mic, so if you can go a little bit closer.
Can you hear this, Julie?
Yes, I
Better?
can. Thank you.
So, Julie, just through 620 of the Kincardine zoning bylaw, if this variance was to be approved, the council has an opportunity, if appropriate, to charge a parking in lieu fee. Would that parking in lieu fee, Julie, have to be part of the recommendation of this council upon recommending approval? Sorry.
I believe we could apply something as a condition. to facilitate that. Also, I would like to bring to council's attention, since temporary seems to be an issue, that you could request that the applicant come back with a temporary zoning bylaw amendment. That's also an option.
So help me out with process here a little bit. Is there opportunity, should council desire, to include an amendment that says to have a parking in lieu of spaces agreement negotiated following this? Or do you need a specific number here and now?
Through you, Mayor, I do believe just the zoning bylaw just affords an agreement in place that assigns what the parking in lieu fee will be for the designated number of parking spots that we're looking to be deficient in. Through you, Mayor,
If
24 is.
Sorry, if I may, through you, Chair. There's also an option to table this, and we can work out something in regards to the conditions and come back to committee if appropriate as well.
I appreciate that, Julie, but the challenge with that is that ultimately we want our children in a classroom in September, not in the cafeteria. And if we delay this, there's no building permit, there's no occupancy, there's no classroom. So council needs, I would encourage you to decide tonight whether if anyone wants to make an amendment to this motion regarding payment in lieu, please do so. And we can consider the amendment and the application for the minor variance, and be able to put this issue, conclude this issue. So I will afford you the opportunity to put forward amendment, and if not, we'll address the motion as it's presented on the floor. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and thanks for being understanding. Through you, Chair, I'd like to do amendment that we're going to review 24 spots after this 24 instead of the 4.86 or whatever they think. I think that it's important that when we discuss this with the school board, the deficiency really is 24. Thank you.
Yeah, that
That
was
was
the
my motion,
motion
24.
that there would be that there would be a negotiation following to establish a payment in lieu for the deficient parking spots. Is that appropriate, Mr. McNabb? Or do you need something way more specific?
I'm just through you, Mayor, just take a few things here. I think, yes, the agreement to come back to council would have to be put in place. I don't think, I'm not sure, and Julie, again, I'm not sure if they can, if the council can make a motion as part of their decision to include the parking in lieu as a financial number or not. I know we have-
That I'd have to evaluate that further. Like, we can apply conditions, but I think the condition wording needs to be part of the motion or part of the decision sheet.
Okay, so here we go. We have a motion on the floor. I'm sorry, Councillor Stewart, it seems, the timing is going to be challenging to accomplish this, to either, there's a bigger issues at hand here than just the parking spots and the payment in lieu. And that's kind of what we're dealing with. So we will put the motion on the floor. Councillor Kavanaugh.
So through the chair, this feels kind of at this point like we don't have a lot of decision here, and this feels very automated. If we say no, the headline tomorrow will read, you know, council stops 90 students from attending school. Whereas hopefully when this gets passed, the headline reads council saves school board again, and highlights how how over the past little while it seems, at least since 2020, you know, there's been a lot of talk of new things happening, and here we are 4 years later, you know, 26 million sitting in an account somewhere, and waiting to pass a motion here to provide 3 new portables that are much needed, but it doesn't feel like we have a lot of choice.
We have a motion on the floor that reads, the Committee of Adjustment approved the minor variance application. All in favor?
Record it, please.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stewart. So we begin with Councillor Stewart
Stewart?
once the clerk's ready.
Absolutely no.
Counselor Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Clark,
Yes.
Counselor Hinchberger,
Yes.
Counselor Prenger,
No.
and Mayor Craig.
Yes. So the resolution passed. So we now need a mover and seconder that the Committee of Adjustment meeting adjourn at 5:40, moved by Councillors Hinchberger and Prenger, all in favor, and that's carried. So we are back in regular council session again. So now we have a public meeting. We have, there's a zoning amendment, file number Z 2024-23. Once again, there's a public meeting under the Planning Act. So if anyone in the public is interested in this application, there's the email at the Bruce County you can connect. And so I now declare the public meeting open and would ask the planner, Jake Boosfield Batisto, to present the application.
Hello again. So this proposal before you tonight is for the rezoning to facilitate surplus farm dwelling severance. The severance will be considered by the county at a later date, but it would roughly sever 2 hectares containing an existing farmhouse and outbuildings, leaving a retained 41-hectare parcel. The rezoning before you would do 2 things. First, prohibit residential dwellings on the retained ag lands, as is consistent with the surplus farm dwelling policies. And second, apply a hold to portions with archaeological potential, so that they would be reviewed if development were ever proposed on them in the future. One note on this instance is that in this case, the owner is staying in the home, and the retained lands will transfer to a farmer who meets the policies for the dwelling to be considered surplus. So slightly different instance than maybe council has seen typically. But there's a purchase and sale agreement with that farmer, and they do meet the policies of the Bruce County official plan and provincial policy statement, namely that they reside elsewhere, and this represents a consolidation as they add this parcel to a larger farm portfolio. So with the above, we recommend council approve the rezoning, and happy to answer questions when the time comes.
Thank you very much for that. All right, are there any questions for the planner from members of council? Is the applicant or the agent present, and would they like to speak to this application? Please come up to the microphone. Just state your name, please, for our record. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair. It's Henry Meyer. Seems satisfactory. So far, it's thorough, and we're happy with the results so far.
Thank you very much. Are there any, is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in support of this application? Or anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? All right, do any council members have any questions from any of the applicants or planners before we close the hearing? So I declare the public meeting to be closed. So we need a mover and seconder that council approves zoning bylaw amendment application said 2024-23 for Majestic Energy, Inc., care of Henry Meyer for 232 Concession 6, Bruce Township, Municipality of Kincardine, moved by councilors Prenger and Blackwell. Any further discussion? All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, Henry. Congratulations. Good work. Carry on. And speaking of good work, we now are into some delegations. And this evening we have with us Drew Braithwaite from the South Bruce Gray Health Center. And Drew, thank you for being here this evening. Our clerk's given you the instructions. We put the egg timer on. You got 5 minutes.
Good.
Where you go.
Thank you, councilors, Mayor Craig, and municipal staff. I want to extend my apologies from Nancy Shaw, the CEO. She was unfortunately double booked this evening and wasn't able to attend, so I am here in her absence. So just a brief history of the redevelopment project at the Kincardine site. We've made 4 previous applications for the redevelopment of the Kincardine Hospital. This particular application that we've made, we began it in 2016, and we've advanced it into stage 2 of the of the capital planning process. This is the furthest that we have ever been as far as the hospital corporation goes in advancing the project for the hospital, for the expansion. If you want to go to the next slide, please. So right now, what we have for the project plan and the scope of the redevelopment is we would leave the existing inpatient unit. So that's the areas that's in the white. We would completely redevelop the emergency room, expanding it into the current DI space and adding an additional area to the south of the building, and adding an ambulance garage and a covered area for patients to enter, as well as adding and expanding a space for the MRI, the CT, and the diagnostic imaging area as well. We also have some front of house and back of house areas such as registration and the loading docks to be expanded. We did expand the CT scanner 2 years ago and became operational last year. We have seen our emergency room volumes increase. They are meeting our projections that we've done with our planning groups and our architects as well. We are right on target what we see and had planned for originally with our original application in 2019 to the ministry. So we can move to the next slide. So I just have a drawing here I just have a drawing of what we have for the building. Again, you can see the emergency department, the ambulance garage, and the lighter green area of the medical imaging is all new. It includes the existing CT addition that we did, as well as the MRI and the additional diagnostic equipment. And we would come out to the east area and add on the registration area as well as the loading docks. So right now, where we are, we've submitted to the ministry. We are just engaged in questions with the ministry. We're just at the end of stage 2. We're expecting approval to move to stage 3 at the end of August. So what stage 3 really is more of a detailed design of the building, and then we can submit that back to the ministry, and we're hoping to get that back next summer and advance then to the tender phase. So we can move to the next slide. So here's where we are right now. So we expect that approval for stage 4, which is the tender process in 2026, and we'd hope we would be in construction by March 2027. So it's a brief overview. I tried to keep it to 5 minutes, so hopefully I wasn't too quick. But was there any questions or comments?
Council members, any questions or comments regarding the redevelopment proposal? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, this new MRI machine, will it be financed or financed by the community? But operational is your responsibility, I believe. Is it a 24-hour sort of projection? Would you run that machine 24, 7 days a week?
So what we are funded through the ministry for is for 2,089 hours. So we have an application in for them for that funding, but such as with all of our DI equipment and the CT, we do have people on call 24/7. So if it was an emergent situation and it was required by the doctors, we would be able to bring someone in to operate that machinery 24/7.
Just to define, what are those hours right now? Is that like 9 to 5 or something? Sorry, I don't have.
We don't have the, like 9 to 5, 8 to 4, but what our plan would be to be operated Monday to Friday to provide the additional information and scans and further scans that the physicians would need. But if there was an emergent situation after hours at nights or weekends, we would, we have an on-call system that we could bring them in.
Thank you, Drew. I was fortunate to be on a Zoom call with some other community members and Ms. Shaw this morning. And she was highlighting some of the challenges facing the hospitals, particularly in the emergency departments. And the number that was presented, Kincardine in this area, like southwestern Ontario, Western Ontario is about the third or fourth highest demand for emergency room services, over 17,000 ER visits a year. And, you know, the addition of diagnostic space and some technology to support the doctors and nurses as they do the work, challenging, but highly critical to our growing community. So thank you for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
And hard on the heels of Drew's presentation are Graham Hood and Murray Elston as they present on behalf of the Kincardine Community Healthcare Foundation.
Okay, the other guys are shy.
Same guidelines. Don't tell any jokes, Murray. Just
no jokes being told here. Very simply, I mean, I know everybody has heard our presentation in detail before. We want to reiterate our request, which has gone beyond the original, which really was the original decision to fund us at $600,000 a year over the course of several years initially. And then we have proposed, because of the MRI, that there be additional ask, and that additional ask has not changed, and we would again put that in front of the council. I think that everybody is aware of the need for us to ensure that our hospital is fully, I was going to say armed, prepared to be a successful example of a hospital around southwestern Ontario. We can't afford to create any stresses in the system. And this, in my view, the addition of the MRI and the CT scanner, really puts us in a position where we will be able to grow along with the population. I think what is really critical for us is that we have a successful development of the CT scan, where we made projections as to what our use would be. We have been on target with that. We have made projections which were previously put in front of the council, and we anticipate those projections as well to be firmly established once we get the MRI operational. So we're just really reiterating our request that we had made earlier, Mr. Mayor and council members.
questions, comments from council members? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. I'm not debating whether Kincardine Hospital needs an MRI. It's the cost I'm debating. I don't remember getting voted a couple of years ago asking the taxpayers to pay $6 million towards a project, and that would be a considerable amount on our tax base. Wanted to know that, I know that you might not be able to answer this, but Goderich was given the same sort of funding. So we're going to have an MNR in Goderich too, and I assume we're going to have one in Kincardine, one in Goderich, which seems to be okay. Now, have you taken in consideration your numbers if Goderich gets one too?
Yes. There were, at the time we were given the opportunity of having an MRI, and announced 27 units across the province of Ontario. Since that time, there have been some of those applications which have not been picked up. For instance, in Wingham, they're busy doing a CT scan and they have not yet picked up an MRI. There are enough projected usages in South Grey, South Bruce, and parts of Huron that we would be well able to meet the targets that we have projected. I would think that we would probably, because of the MRI deficiency in service, also be able to reach pretty close into parts of Wellington, out by Harrison and Palmerston and those areas. It's not uncommon for people to be traveling 3 or 4 hours. I know some of my neighbors have traveled to Mississauga and some other places, Stratford, London. So our numbers have been conservatively constructed, Councillor Stewart, and the projection, even with a Goderich, for instance, available for service, we believe we're still in good shape on the numbers.
Follow up, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I agree. It's nice to see that we are going to assist with a lot of outside communities, but you're asking the in-house community, the host community, Kincardine, to pay the lion's share. That's, for $6 million. I think that was your original quote. I mean, originally.
Oh, you mean 6 million for the MRI? Yes.
But
yes.
we originally approved 2.4. We talked about the pledge.
Yep.
I think, if I had my say, that would be where we would stop. I think, this is really a community thing. And each individual community member will have to feel whether they want to give or not. And through that, they can also get a tax receipt. We apply this to our taxes. They don't get a receipt. Currently, I'm not sure if you ever looked at our books, but we have over $20 million of debt already. So this one's really going to be a tough one to move ahead. But, definitely the 2.4 that we sort of talked about last term, I could see our way to do that, and I would support that. But I'm sorry, moving ahead on this one, and it's not tonight we're going to make a vote or anything. Just wanted to tell you that's my opinion. It's going to be a real challenge for us. Thank you.
We have gone beyond just this host community. We've also gone to Huron-Kinloss. We've asked a proportionate share from them as well. We did the same originally when we were at 12 million. We asked for a contribution from Kincardine. We asked for a contribution from Huron-Kinloss, and each abided by that. With respect to the MRI, we have gone further afield, and we've gone to Bruce County, as you may remember we had said earlier, and we've asked them for a substantial contribution as well, Councillor Stewart. So we are looking further for that, for the help with the MRI, because we know the service is going to be wider than just Kincardine and Huron-Kinloss, and we have done the steps to broaden our appeal areas. So we didn't ask anything for the CT scan municipally. We didn't do anything with the county, even though another municipality that has just opened their CT scan got municipal funding both locally and at the county level. So we are pretty aware that we're going to be providing broader service, but we are also going to be providing service with the MRI for people in Kincardine and for people in Huron-Kinloss. And we're providing that for the physicians who are going to be providing the service in our hospitals. So we think it's a huge benefit to the long-term stability and the long-term viability of this huge municipal resource. It's critical, I think, to ensuring our long-term viability.
Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Councillor Stewart's done a lot of heavy lifting tonight, and I don't want him to feel completely alone. Like, I'm completely sympathetic to the need, and I'm completely on board with honoring the 600,000 times 4 years, 2.4 million. When we get into the MRI, though. I think the dilemma is, and I'll continually try to find ways to pull a rabbit out of a hat. But if you leave healthcare aside and hospitals aside, we're essentially like a house here that say is worth $1 million. And we've got to do $1 million worth of rehabilitation or restoration in the next 25 years. But we only have 400 grand in the bank. Like the municipality is not flush with cash. And unfortunately, this might actually be a good opportunity for those who are watching in the gallery or in the public to realize that if we're going to do some things, it can't be this and that. We're going to have to get into this or that. I used an analogy in a couple meetings ago. Someday somebody's going to be driving out in a concession and it's no longer going to be there. And they're going to say, well, where did concession 8 go? And I'll say, it's over at the hospital. So it's just like, we'll try to find ways, I will personally try to find ways to make all the wants happen, but there is some tough realities at play here. Thanks.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I think there's a sense that we've asked the councils to pay for the whole ball of wax. That's not so. There'll still be funding required for the MRI beyond the municipal share that we've requested. We have been so far fairly successful in having the public step up to assist us. We're somewhere around $8 million that we've raised. That's counting the numbers that are that can be described as firmly associated with us. So it's not like we haven't gone to parts of the public so far. We are doing that. It's a staged approach, but we are looking at our municipal, in this case host, but partners in providing services to our community to be the pace setters, if I can describe it as that. But we have done some fairly heavy lifting with the general public as well. And a lot of that work is paying off for us. So we've got some money coming.
Councillor Kavanaugh, please.
Thank you very much. And this is a question through the chair. Thank you very much for the delegation. What timeline are you looking at where you need to have a definitive answer from this council?
Well, you saw the timeline that's there. I think when we originally started, some of us have been going at this for a little while now, and we had anticipated a much earlier resolution to some of the requests. But now we're looking at extending the time to begin building to 2027. Originally, it was going to be much earlier than that. So there is some time, I suppose, that we can move the year's contributions out. How far that is, I can't speak to that. I'm not sort of coordinating all of that activity. And it really does depend, to be quite honest, on how quickly the ministry comes back to the hospital with their approvals. Once we get in, pardon me, once we get into 3 and 4, having been in that world once myself, it goes apace. It kind of has its own system. It's getting to that threshold and crossing that threshold that then it moves along. But till now, it has been extended a little bit further than we had anticipated. So our appeal time could stretch out just a little bit longer.
Thank you very much. That answers my question. And since other councilors are keen to declare their position, much like the advancement with the energy sector, I support this as I see it's a part of our growing community. Thank you.
So thank you, Murray and Graham. Graham, well spoken. Appreciate that. I want to echo Councillor Stewart's comments, part of them in that this really is a community project. And I would like to congratulate the foundation for the work that you have started and are continuing. Your presence at the car show was very successful, the start of August. A little shout out to John Satosik at Canadian Tire, for his contribution that night. So I think the success of this campaign rests significantly on the shoulders of individual people. We will play our part, but your work in the community is recognized and appreciated. So thanks very much. All right. So once again, that's the end of the hospital conversation. Y'all can go home or stay if you want, whatever you want to do. So yeah. So I'd like to welcome Jane Jagielski, and there's a presentation by Doug Vince here. And we'll hear the presentation, and then before we get into the discussion, we'll have the motion so that we keep our conversation focused. Okay, Director, please.
Thank you, and through you. I've been working a little bit over the last few months with a recently newly formed not-for-profit group called InfraHuron Nonprofit Park Development Corporation. They've approached the municipality for the consideration of entering into a parkland lease agreement for InfraHuron Upper Park. We'll be looking asking council for the consideration to report back at a later date for a proposed agreement for council's consideration. This type of agreement isn't new in a lot of municipalities, but it is somewhat new for Kincardine to enter and to consider into an agreement such as this. There are some great, good news stories that have occurred with surrounding communities that do have similar agreements. And I was ecstatic to hear from this group as they approached us and had long conversations with our consultants that had completed our recreation master plan. So I'd like to welcome Douglas Vince to the podium this evening, who's going to explain a little bit about the work that they've done, which has been a lot of work, and where their vision is going.
Welcome, Doug.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Craig, councilors, and municipal staff for the invitation to be here this evening. My name is Doug Vince, and I do represent the InfraHuron Upper Park Development.
Excuse me, could you just either bend the microphone over a little bit or move closer to that side of the podium without severely damaging municipal property? So.
I got a credit card. Sorry.
Oh, it's right in there.
Just a lot of people watching that are interested in what's being presented, that's all.
Understood. Can you hear me? Okay. So you got little bit of the intro. You know who I am. You know who the corporation it is. It is a nonprofit. The genesis of this program arose from what's called the InfraHuron District Ratepayers Association back in 2011. That program was handed from year to year to year to various IDRA executives and landed on my lap in August of 2022. Since that time, we've been patiently working and diligently asking questions of the community as to what they would like to see in the Upper Park, which is an outstanding feature of InfraHuron. And we've gotten to the point now where we have incorporated a nonprofit to take over this drive. I am a director of that nonprofit, and therefore I've had to resign from the IDRA as of the last IDRA meeting, which was July 31st. We've taken charge of this. The nonprofit has taken charge of this operation. We do have 4 executives. Thank you. As a start for this corporation, the IDRA has disavowed its involvement in the development of this corporation, of the Upper Park rather. That does not imply, however, that they've disowned us. The Upper Park is very much in their thoughts, and they're looking forward to us getting something going and finishing. So slide 1, we're there. Oh, back to slide 1. Our committee members are property owners and bring diverse skill sets to this project. In aggregate, we create a strong solutions-based oriented team with a value per dollar focus. In preparation of this task, a comprehensive study of our community was conducted by the IDRA in December of 2023. I believe you people have the results of that survey. It should be online. Is that a yes? Okay. Slide 2, please. It's no secret the municipalities across Ontario are facing fiscal challenges. I've heard a little bit to that effect this evening already, due to funding cutbacks at the provincial level. In response, research indicates that municipal community partnerships may well be the paradigm of choice to tackle this challenge. The partnerships lead to community involvement, which leads to a community sense of ownership, which in turn leads to innovation and taps into the skill sets already embedded in our communities. It's not surprising that municipal community partnerships are responded to more favorably by funding operations, by funding agencies, grants. Slide 3, please. As an example of community spirit and municipal strength, we have reached out to businesses with strong historical ties to our community. Businesses such as Jackson's Construction, Mackenzie Lumber, Andy Mackenzie, which is a familiar name in the area here. As a result, we now have significant portions of our stage 1 capital cost covered. The municipality's ability to convert invoices into tax credits via the charitable donations adds to our effort to do this. Slide 4, please. The cost to carry is a major concern, which is addressed by your Life Cycle Reserve Fund. One of our goals, our vision, is to create features and assets in a manner that avoids stressing that fund. This small sample illustrates a conservative estimate of cash flow from the 4 major park themes identified by a community: recreation, stewardship, community, and special events. Stewardship is a major focus, and we are blessed with the presence of Betty Lamont, who has agreed to take an advisory role to our efforts. Slide 5, please. In a July 2023 study by Park People, which is a Canadian organization, identified stewardship as one of the elements that increases a community's sense of well-being, connectedness, and purpose. Through our survey, our community has indicated a strong desire for a local park that provides that opportunity. We believe our approach responds to their voice and is consistent with the many principles embodied in your municipality that cares. Thank you.
Director, do you have any comments to add to that before we begin our discussion?
No, nothing. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a resolution before us that council directs staff to enter into discussions with Inverhuron Nonprofit Park Development Corporation for the purposes of a parkland lease agreement for Inverhuron Upper Park, and that staff report back at a later date with a proposed agreement for council's consideration. Moved by councillors Prenger and Stewart. Questions, please. Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through your chair, very interesting. Thanks, Doug, for coming to the table.
You're welcome.
And coming to the delegation through, and we're sort of witnessing, this is probably one of our first things that we're doing in our municipality, so it's going to be a challenge. The only thing I can ask, because I am a resident over here, and you know that I know there's a little bit of a, I'd say, a roughness between your group and the RDRA. Over the time, hold on, just asking you to maybe sort of work that out while we're doing our necessary research too, please. Thank you.
I don't think that was a question. That was just a statement. Yeah.
I'd like to comment back if I could.
Okay.
The roughness, as you described, I think was a result of growing pains and communication and trying to learn what is required to pull a task like this off and make it a reality. The IDRA has its own mandate, and it was somewhat difficult, as you know, Bill, to impose this type of rigorous examination on what it takes to build a park onto a group of people who come to their cottages to have play day and beach day and picnic day and those type of things. So in the end, I think it was both parties recognize that the hard work can be done in the background, and when we're ready, we'll go back and talk to them and open the door.
Counselor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I can't think of a single reason not to be in favor of this. I just want to make sure that from our end, like, the word in the asset management plan, when it says that the public generally wanted a family diner level of service, that we make sure in this endeavor that we support the family diner level, and the IDRA or that organization, if it wants to take it up to the fine dining, that, you know what I mean, that we're not just a handoff. That's what I'll be looking for in the future. Thanks.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you for your presentation. Perhaps echoing that of Councillor Hinchberger, I can't see a reason that I wouldn't support certainly discussions going on for this to move forward.
Thank you.
Counselor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you, first off, congratulations. It's not easy to start a project like this. My question is mainly related to public input and ability for residents to continue to have engagement and perhaps a say in what it will look like. Just wondering if you could speak a little bit about that and how your nonprofit, perhaps how your bylaws include people to have a good say within what's kind of going on with the project.
Very good question. And we've given that considerable amounts of thought. The survey that we did was the first of its kind, and it was distributed broadly to the community. We had, I believe it was just under 500 emails that were sent out from the IDRA Facebook page. From that 500, I understand that roughly 50% opened the email, 50% didn't see it or went to trash or whatever. Out of that 50% who opened it, 50% responded. And that is the highest, it ranks as one of the highest results for a survey of this kind. Normally the normal response rate is between 20 and 40%. Out of that 50% of the 50%, our calculations indicate that we were 97% enthusiastically approved to move forward. The comments, well, you've seen them in the survey results that I provided to you. That's just the beginning. Now the hard work begins. We have identified the four major themes that I've spoken to as being the park that our community is looking for. So what we've been doing is lining up people, identifying people in the community with the expertise to carry this off. For instance, Betty Lamont. She runs the Kincardine Labyrinth Garden here, I understand. She's agreed to become an advisor to the stewardship segment of this park. I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that this is going to be a swing set recreational type park. This is going to be a multifaceted, multi-use, multi-user park that is multi-access, by the way, and has several different flavors and segments to it. So Betty Lamont was a real catch for us. We also have stewardship of the forest that we need to look at. I've taken a walk through that forest on a few occasions now with Andy McKenzie. Andy McKenzie is known in the area as the guy to go to if you want to know something about trees. Andy's indicated to me that the forest is dying and we need to get to it and get to it at some point quick. That forest is not there for us to tear down. It's a natural resource that we want to turn into something that people can actually enjoy and use safely. So to that effect, Andy and I have come up with a plan to recruit volunteers, if you will, who are like-minded, and address that forest before we even open it up to the community. Meaning address it as such that it's safe to walk through without being poked in the eye or tripping, and wheelchair accessible. In order to pull off the rest of it, we need to campaign, and we have an entire winter season in which to do this. We'll be opening up a semi-Facebook page. That's not my area, so someone else will take care of that. That communicates to our community, and basically just outlines what I've just indicated to you in simple terms, what the goals are, what the stages are, and where we need help. I expect from my discussions with people around the community that the biggest source of help and volunteerism that we're going to get is from teenagers. Our teenagers are bored stiff out there. I had the marvelous experience of running into three, I'll call them kids, but they're big kids, in the upper park one day after I was walking through with Andy McKenzie, and they were playing baseball. And there was two young gals, teenagers, and I assume their older brother. And they were playing kind of in a muddy field. And I walked up to them and I said, "What do you guys think about this park?" The answer was not pleasant. And I opened up the field and I said, "What would you think if we had a pickleball court over here and a volleyball court over here?" And smiles appeared. Then I asked them, "Would you be willing to participate and get your friends involved to help us build a volleyball court?" Which is not difficult. We could probably do it within a few days. And the response was, "Perfect, we'll do it." So it's that kind of reaching out that we need to do. Reaching out, defining what we need, and responding and setting up the structure that receives the response. I'm being vague, but that's where it works.
That's why the motion says enter into discussions with the municipality. So
Correct.
the
Yes.
vague narrows down. Further questions? All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Doug, Randy, thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate your hard work so far.
Thank you, Jane.
So we have another motion here regarding 53 Whippoorwill Lane. We need a mover and seconder of the council of the municipality of Kincardine pass a bylaw to enter into an encroachment agreement with Abigail and William Pawson for 53 Whippoorwill Lane and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign all related documentation. Moved by Councillor Stewart and Deputy Mayor Clark. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Oh, did you have a question? No. Oh, okay. Develop agreement exemption, 729 Bruce Road 23. We need a mover and seconder that the council of the municipality of Kincardine rescind bylaw number 2010-103, being a bylaw to authorize the signing of an interim development agreement with Susan K. Pride to exclude the property known as Part Block 16 PL 3M 183 Part 3 3R 9067. Municipality of Kincardine, 729 Bruce Road 23, from the requirements of the interim agreement, and that the interim development agreement be removed from title on the property known as Part Block 16 PL 3M 183 Part 3 3R 9067, Municipality of Kincardine, 729 Bruce Road 23, and further the council authorize the mayor and clerk to execute all required documentation on behalf of the municipality. Moved by councillors Stewart and Hinchberger. Any discussion? Councillor Prenger, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I'm actually a little concerned about this one. It says in the, let's see, consultation overview section of the report that it actually focuses just on tree retention. The original intent of the development agreement was to address drainage and building location as well. And you're saying that, sorry, through the chair, it's saying that the drainage and building location will be addressed by the building permit process. However, this property is governed partially by SVCA. So my understanding is that development agreement was of interest to SVCA, not just for tree retention, which we all know they no longer have any jurisdiction over, so that's fine. But the drainage and the building location is definitely going to be a concern for them. And I don't see any evidence here that they were consulted on this and whether they agree to having the development agreement rescinded. Yes, not rescinded. They don't have to go into a new one. Exempted for the next one. Thank you. I was looking for that word, exempted.
Yes, sir, you're Mary. You're right, Councilor Bringer. The SVCA was involved with this when we talked to them about their rights to comment on the tree retention. They mentioned their Bill 23 that's removed from their powers of authority to do those comments. So in doing so, we look at once they apply for a building permit, they're going to be required to provide a grading and drainage plan. And being that they are within the Saugeen Valley Conservation Regulatory Area, they won't be able to get any building permits until I get that permit from Saugeen Valley that gives them the authorization either for a major or minor works to go through with their building permit. So they will be involved through the building permit stage from the start in order just to obtain a building permit. And that building permit is going to require them to show that they have a grading and drainage plan through a land surveyor or an engineer. And so that's how we are going to basically view this, is that the Building Code Act will govern the building location through the zoning bylaw, as well as the grading and drainage through the requirements of having a grading and drainage plan for your new house. As well, the septic also will influence some of the grading and drainage as we have to ensure that we shed water away from the septic system. So that all works with the grading and drainage plan. With that, then we move into the tree retention and the commenting agent being the county. And that's where we have an arborist report, which we did this a couple years ago, actually 3 or so when I started here. We did this with another one where we had SVCA comment on the arborist report. We just don't have that opportunity now. So we've got the arborist report, and through discussions with our legal team is that by signing an undertaking, that undertaking binds the new owner to follow that arborist agreement. And in doing so, that it basically works the same way in parallel as what a site plan agreement would work, only it's not quite as detailed or onerous as what a site plan agreement would entail. Ours are pretty onerous where we have securities, postponements. There's a lot of steps to that agreement, but through the affidavit, this will accomplish the same intent, at least in my perspective of what a further detailed development agreement would accomplish as well.
Follow up? You okay? Counselor Stewart, please.
Thank you, and through your chair. Dwight, I read this a couple of times. I'm still trying to understand it. It's a little bit confusing for me, maybe not the rest of the council. But this piece of parcel was a bigger piece of parcel, and you severed this piece of parcel, severed that. So, it's almost coming a subdivision. It's really more of a comment. We have to be careful of these things because is the owner planning to sever any more of the parcel or anything, or we don't know what he or she or then I guess it's a she. But, I get worried about all of a sudden having these, that's what we try to avoid from the farms. And this is a development parcel that seems like, and then the owner says, well, I'm not planning to develop any of these severed properties. I'm not quite sure. Could you just help me understand this a little bit better? Thank you.
Sure, through you, Mayor. This was done a few years prior to my involvement, but it was a larger lot that had 3 severances from it to create 3 individual lots. And the intent with the owner was to not develop the lot. She wanted to sell the parcels. So having a condition of severance to enter into the agreement, correct me if I'm not trying to be as accurate as I can here, the requirement of the severance was to enter into an agreement with each individual parcel. But the intent with the severance was not to develop them herself, but yet sell them. So she did not want to be tied to an agreement on a parcel that she was selling. So that's where it got into a little bit of, it is confusing because the severance condition was to require require a development agreement, but they couldn't meet that condition, so they passed a condition of severance to enter into an interim development agreement, which required them to enter into a further detailed agreement. So we're tripping over agreements essentially on this severance conditions, and so we're trying to get this cleaned up, and this is the last of the 3 parcels, I do believe, that were severed off, that will be developed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Counselor Pranger, please.
Sorry, thank you, through you, Chair. Just to clarify, so did you just say that the other 2 parcels have already been developed and been through this process, and this is the last one?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Oh, one more, Counselor?
Yeah. Am I correct in my understanding that back in 2010, when this interim agreement was put into place, the same building requirements with the building permit and grading plan type thing, and the same SVCA regulations applied as they do now?
Through you, Mayor, I would hope so. I don't believe that the Soggy Valley Conservation, the regulatory areas have moved. I do believe they're still in the same locations, which would have required them, they should have went through the regulatory authorities prior to obtaining any building permits. And I apologize, it may not be the 3 of them are developed. I think just 1 is. I think there's just 2. They're just on Bruce Road 23. They're on the corner. So I said all 3, but I think only 1's currently developed.
Okay, to my first point about the regulations and what applies, I'm concerned because I'm assuming there was a good reason for wanting the development agreement at the time. And if things haven't changed enough to make that not necessary, I don't understand. I know that having experience there, that when you take a less onerous route, although it's more efficient, perhaps things can get overlooked or dropped or not implemented. And so I have concerns there from personal experience. To the other point about which ones have been developed, if the one that hasn't, does it still have an agreement, like a requirement like this? Or is this taking all of them away from all the lots then?
This is just for the one parcel. And I do agree with you, through you, Mayor, Councilor Pringer, that yes, the agreement, the development agreement was very specific, and it only required the arborist report and tree retention. So yes, it does sound like it's maybe a little less onerous, a little more efficient, but to address just the two issues, if there was other requirements that were very detailed, that we're asking for stormwater management, fire servicing, stuff like that, then we go into a very detailed, our template of our site plan agreement. Just in this specific scenario, I think it's reasonable to go through the undertaking to address those two issues. But again, I do hear your concern.
I trust you, so I'm gonna go with you on this one.
All in favor of the motion? And that's carried. Sign bylaw exemption for 219 Lambton Street, Kincardine, Royal Canadian Legion. We need a mover and seconder that the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine grant a sign exemption request from section 2.17 and 3.0 of the bylaw 2003-106 for the placement of an LED ground sign located at 219 Lambton Street, Kincardine, Royal Canadian Legion, moved by Councillor Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Hinchberger. Dwayne, any comment, or would you just like questions?
Questions be fine.
Any questions from council members? Just one. Neighbors find LED signs quite bright, and I didn't see any stipulation that at this time of night it's going to be turned off. I saw that it was going to be turned off, but I would encourage a number put in there. This is when it gets turned off, because like even very low levels of illumination are really bright at 11 o'clock at night. So any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? And that's carried. Vector truck business case. We need a mover and seconder that council receive report operations 2024-20 for information purposes for the consideration of purchasing a new Vector truck within the 2025 budget to be considered during 2025 budget deliberations. So this is just receiving the report. This isn't buying the truck. Moved by Councillor Kavanaugh and Stewart. Would you like some questions or a report, or what would you like to do? We all received the report, very thorough. Are there any questions for our manager? Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, and through you, we've already had a brief discussion, and you have lots of options here. So I like to at least express my opinion on some of the options to give you a little more direction. My recommendation would be, I know this is going to go through council, but my recommendation would be buy a new one. I wouldn't really trust a secondhand one. The other condition is that I wouldn't, in your report, you talked about maybe services this out to outside use. No, we'll keep it inside. That's would be my recommendation, and just use in the municipality. I think the liability could be quite severe if we decided to do it outside and treat it more like a revenue source than we really need to. The other thing is we really need, this is very sophisticated equipment. The last one we've had for 20 years. Interesting, in 2004, the cost of it was $357,000. So they're an expensive piece of equipment. I know there's only 2 municipalities have one. Our friends Ken Jackson's got 8 of them. They are really required, and you know me, I'm a cheapskate when it comes to equipment, so I can highly recommend, we're gonna need this. Having Mr. Jackson down for an hour to do a little favor for me was $450, so, you know, it's expensive if we decide to go with the lease. So I'm just sort of giving you my opinion, so you can march ahead, so, when we see it in the budget, we have a little more stuff, so that's my comments for the day.
Further questions? So it's once again to receive the report. All in favor? And that's carried. Kincardine Water Treatment Plant Raw Water Intake Line. We need a mover and seconder that council approve a budget amendment to add a new 2024 capital project, Kincardine Water Treatment Plant Raw Water Intake Line with an estimated cost of $300,000 funded from Water Reserve Fund 68 to complete necessary repairs on the intake line feeding the water plant in Kincardine. And further, that council supports a staff recommendation to work in conjunction with the contracted municipal engineers to evaluate the difficult conditions of this project and apply the exemptions of 3.2 and or 3.9 of the procurement policy to allow the project to sole sourced to support success and safe completion to ensure the delivery of water to the drinking water system. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Stewart. Questions? Nope, and all the hands go up. Councillor Hinchberger, please.
Thank you, through your mayor. It's just a comment. It won't affect how I vote, though. It's I'm doing a mental tally in my head. There just seems to be, over the past year or so, a growing number level of surprises, and it just naturally, my old job in an oversight role, just wondering how far does extended condition go and how many other surprises out there, and what are we doing in order to find them so that they don't become surprises. Thanks.
Question or, no, seriously, question or comment? Okay, thank you. Further questions? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, of course, the same sort of vein as my fellow counselor. Yeah, I'm a little surprised by this. Thank God we caught it. This could have caused a lot of major problems if that rope or anything went into the pump. It could have destroyed the pump and shut us down. Little surprised that this stuff isn't inspected during our every 5-year master plans. I think we want to maybe include to send a robot down the intake. And who are we using, or who are you planning to use? I mean, this is a real specialty. I mean, you're gonna have to send a diver down there to do it. I'm not sure if the butterfly intake valve is shot or it has to be replaced, but you know, we are really dependent on one intake. If we lose that intake, we're pretty well shut down in water. I mean, what do we have, about 5 days worth of water on hand if we lost that intake? Those are questions for Mark.
Through you, Mayor Craig. So the initial comment, I guess, pertaining to regular inspection and things of that nature, I would say that a raw water intake line is one of those types of vital resources that should be inspected regularly. So that through the process, that's what we've started, is trying to identify some of these previous vital resources to our community and implementing a program not only to inspect them, but my team and I worked also really hard to even just complete maintenance on these lines. So without boring you with a ton of details, you really can't send chlorinated water out into that lake, so you have to figure out a way to dechlorinate it to get it out there. So we've had lots of challenges here this year. So yeah, we're working to identify those. To Councillor Hinchberger's comment, I guess, I'll just quickly address to say I've done this for 20 years and there's always surprises. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we've got them all covered at this point type of thing. I think there's going to be others, and we continue to run into difficult circumstances, such as the Kincardine Lagoons earlier this year, and how making significant capital improvements to a facility has actually caused other issues that now need to be addressed as well. So it's a difficult circumstance. We're working with our engineering group. And they are using their resources to reach out to people, other engineers that would be suitable to tackle these projects. And we would work with them to listen to who they've had great successes with. The biggest obstacle facing the raw water intake line, as Councillor Stewart kind of hinted to, is not necessarily getting to it or getting it cut out of the way. It's once we get it cut out of the way, how do we get it put back together, which is likely with divers, and how quickly can we put that back together to start getting water into our facility again. As far as overall capacity of the facilities, Kincardine has approximately 7,000 cubic meters between the reservoir and water tower, which would struggle to hold you for 2 days.
Councillor Pranger, please.
Thank you, through your chair. Has an investigation ever been performed into the possibility of creating redundancy with a second line installation? Where it would go, if it's feasible, how much it would cost, that kind of thing? And I have a follow-up based on your.
To my knowledge, this line was installed in the late 70s, I believe. It is HDPE pipe, which is a great resource. I don't think there has necessarily been any investigation into a secondary line or teeing an additional line type of thing. Just for your guys' records, that line runs about 700 meters out into the lake. It would be a huge cost for a secondary line type of thing.
Follow up, please.
I was just, okay, I'm assuming it'll be huge cost. This is a fairly huge cost. We're gonna have to have people out there anywhere. I was just wondering if there'd be any cost savings by, while this work is being done, investigating that, or even the possibility of having it installed at the same time, since we're gonna have divers in there, et cetera, or if it's just too much to even handle right now.
I appreciate that question, but it's a little outside the scope of what this motion says, so that's okay. It's not beyond the scope of our consideration, but it's beyond the scope of this motion, so. Any further questions regarding approving this budget amendment? All in favor? And that's carried. Motions that we have before us this evening, 7.2. Need a mover and seconder that council support the City of Stratford Resolution number 2024-151 regarding a call to action to meet the deadline of an accessible Ontario by 2025, moved by Councillors Deputy Mayor Clark and Councillor Hinchberger. Any discussion? All in favor? Bylaws 2024 budget amendment bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the 2024 budget amendment bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2024-113, moved by Councillors Stewart and Blackwell. All in favor? That's carried. Appoint Guy Gallant Fire Chief bylaw. We need a mover and seconder that the Guy Gallant Fire Chief appointment be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2024-114. Councillors Kavanagh and Stewart. Any discussion? All in favor? That's carried. Vanderveken Drain Agreement. We need a mover and seconder that the Vanderveken Drain Agreement 2024 bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2024-115, moved by Councillors Hinchberger and Deputy Mayor Clark. She looks like a drain person tonight. All in favor? That's carried. A motion to pass bylaws. We need a mover and seconder that the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, third time, finally passed 14th of August 2024. Amendment to zoning bylaw 2003-25-232, concession 6, municipality of Kincardine bylaw 2024-116. Pawson 2024 encroachment agreement 53 Whippoorwill Lane bylaw 2024-117. And rescind bylaw 2010-103 interim development agreement, the Pride 2024-118 bylaw. Moved and seconded by Councillor Stewart and Kavanaugh. All in favor? That's carried. Consent agenda. Items listed are considered routine and are enacted in one motion unless the councillor would like to request one or more items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and or action. So we need a mover and seconder that the council approve the recommendations contained. We're gonna have a discussion first, never mind. Any that you would like pulled out for comment or discussion? Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, I have three and they're all for comments. The first one is 8.1A, Environmental Services. I'd like to thank Mark and his team. This was actually done on a performance of the town or village of Tiverton. I don't know if everyone read it. It's quite an exciting report. Out of the 444 different things they have to do, Mark and his team have achieved 100%. So that's outstanding because everyone in council here, and we'd like to thank you, Mark, because we all go to jail together. So I think that's an outstanding report. So thank you. Let's go to B, the 24 6-month financial report. And I don't think Roxanne is here, but I don't know if everyone got a chance to read the numbers. But at the end of June, and I know it's just a moment in time, that we were $3.7 million under budget. And we were actually, revenue was over budget by $610,000. I wish this was the December 31st one. So congratulations, we're in good shape. The last one is C, and C is an interesting one, which is a position recruitment. The part that really interests me was that our clinic might not be big enough. And that's the only comment I'm going to say. But, you know, after tonight, you know, all of a sudden there might be some additional capital costs coming. But that was an interesting report. So that was just comments. Thank you.
Anything further? So we need a mover and seconder. The council approve the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated August 14, 2024, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Moved by councillors Blackwell and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? And that's carried. Member of council, general announcements. Deputy Mayor, how about you go first?
Well, the Sports and Recreation at the municipality opened up their registration yesterday at 7 a.m. I'm quite pleased to say I was online to register the boys for swimming. And there is a Hindu cultural open house this weekend, Saturday at the 17th. Oh no. So certainly encourage everyone to get out there to that.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, not to steal everyone else's thunder, but the AMO, the big Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference is happening in Ottawa coming up, and the mayor and the CAO and myself will be attending to advocate for Kincard's needs at a provincial level. We also have a number of events coming up on the 24th, just to check off the boxes. We have the August 24th at 11 a.m. There's the Marine Heritage Day, so you can head down to the water and see some exciting stuff there. And then later on, it's the gathering of the bands.
Councillor Blackwell, please.
Thank you. A lot of the exciting events I've got on my calendar have already been shared, but one thing that is happening right now that some people may not know if they're less of a nerd than I am, is that the Municipal World Magazine is running the Great Canadian Landmark Challenge and contest, and I have nominated the Kincard Lighthouse as what I think of as the greatest Canadian landmark, and so you can go onto their website and vote.
Councillor Stewart, please.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I have sort of three quick announcements. The Tiverton Lions will be participating in the Special Olympics bocce ball tournament this Saturday in Tiverton. Also, good news is that we'll be pouring concrete on our splash pad in Tiverton tomorrow. So the completion is still, looks like 1st of September. So please get your bathing suits ready. We're going to probably have a council meeting out there. And the third thing, good news also, is I was over at Birchwood and that staircase is almost complete. It's still going to take another week, but I'll make sure that we have a council meeting there too. Thank you.
Councillor Pranker?
Just to note that registration for the Kincardine Forest School is still open and there's actually a few spots still left.
Really?
Councillor Hinchberger?
Thank you through your mayor. The issues that I had or items have been duly noted by my colleagues.
Just a couple, actually, the Kincardine Fall Fair, Saturday, August 31st, at the Connaught Park, and the fair book is online. If you need something to do in the afternoon, just check on that and color a picture or grow a flower or something like that. I had commented I was on a Zoom meeting with the community members and the executive of the South Bruce Grey Health Center, and there is continuing conversation about the purpose and function and size of the hospitals within the South Bruce Grey Corporation. To that end, they are hosting community engagement sessions. August 26th, they are at the Durham Arena. August 27th, they are at the Chesley Arena. Check on their website for times and those sorts of details. But they also commented that there will be opportunity in both Kincardine and Walkerton to have community meetings to share your thoughts as part of the visioning session and the call to arms sort of for a community about what you want your hospital to be in future years. CAO.
I think for me, I just wanted to say thanks to council. We will have, after you have this evening appointed the new fire chief, we will have a new fire chief starting with us on Monday. But I really wanted to take this opportunity to thank the folks that filled in. So the two deputy chiefs, both Ron Simmons and Matt Cottrell, for stepping in for an interim period, which was several months as we undertook our search, and we're really excited about Guy joining the team. But I really wanted to thank both of them for stepping up in that capacity.
Okay, we need a mover and seconder. The council move into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended for the purpose of considering closed session minutes dated June 12th and June 16th, June 26th, 2024. A position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Financial considerations associated with payment in lieu. 3, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, municipal servicing, legal opinion. Position plan and procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board, Kincardine Family Health Organization, the medical office lease. Further, the council return to regular open meeting upon completion, moved by councillors Blackwell and Deputy Mayor Clark. All in favor? Carried by O'Brake.